We are going to be taking a look at the type tools today in Adobe Illustrator. The type tool is the one with the big T for text or for type. The letter T gets you to that tool if you want to know the shortcut. And so what we're going to do to start is we're going to do point type. In order to create point type, we need to actually click on the screen, and that's it. And you'll notice that it gives us a little bit of filler text. It's called lorem ipsum. And if you're creating point type, it's just going to have those first two words. I can type out whatever I want. In fact, let's type out something, whatever I want. Whatever. All right. And I can, when I finish typing, I can go back to my selection tool and I can resize that. If I hold down the shift key, it maintains proportions. If I let go of the shift key, it gets all wonky. And that's point type. Now, the difference is if I get the type tool and I click and drag, notice I'm making a box this time. When I do that, that now gives me what is called area type. And area type is going to have all of the text laid out in a way that allows for me to have a paragraph, right? And the lorem ipsum text is perfect as an example for that. And so now I have this paragraph. The issue with this is if I hold down shift and make it bigger, all I'm doing is making the text box bigger, not the actual text itself. And in fact, you can see I'm losing some of my text when I do that, if I shrink it down. If I wanted it to be like the point type, I can actually toggle between these two. The way you do that is when you select area type, you can actually go in and go to type, and then there's an option that says convert to point type. When I do that now, when I make this bigger, it gets bigger and smaller, but it's no longer a text box like we had before. And we can switch back as well. So I just go back to type and then convert to area type, and now it's back to area type. When you're working through this, I want to see that you can show me that primary application of a point type versus that primary application of area type. You can just leave the lorem ipsum. That is totally fine. Now, in Adobe Illustrator, when we are working with type, we do often run into issues with fonts. So right now on this document, the text that's on the backgrounds and everything is a font that's installed on my computer, but it's not installed on your computers. And that is important because if you were to try and view this document in the original format, you would actually see an error saying, hey, I don't have this font, you can't see it. So what we do for that is we can outline our text. And what this does is it turns that text into a shape. So, let's just change the font color or the font here because we can. So we'll change it here to this Bananas VF. Pretty cool one, right? I can resize it. There's all kinds of type options in here that you can explore to your little heart's content. We're not going to worry about them right now, though. And so now what I'm going to do is I can still edit this, right? Once I know I have it how I want, is on the bottom of the properties panel, you're going to see an option that says create outlines. Ooh, I don't want that font. That made me sad. Okay. So you're going to see this option that says create outlines. If I click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to turn my text from an actual text to an outlined thing. So, I can turn off the stroke here. And you're going to see these are actually shapes now, just like our circles and our squares and everything like that we've created before. Okay. I can actually manipulate these now. So I can get the direct selection tool. And let's say, I wanted to move the L down so that the L is underlining the word love. I can do that and just using, oops, I grabbed part of the O. But I can start kind of manipulating and changing up how these different elements are going to interact with each other and get that kind of lined up in a way, right? So it doesn't really read well at all. It looks like it says IOV, but you can see how that outlining the text allows us to get a lot of editing done to the text if we wanted to make these edits, right? So if we want the C to be smaller, we can grab the C and make it smaller, and then grab the rest of school school. And we can just slide that over, right? So there's a lot of different things we can play around with when we outline text. There is not, however, a way to really go back. They do have a function called retype. It's in beta, and it has varying degrees of success in being able to convert it back to normal text. It's not going to catch like that big L. It would probably do okay with the C, and we'll see why in a second here. But once you've outlined the text, kind of pretend like you can't edit it in terms of like changing how it's spelled or anything like that. Okay. But outlining text does allow for people to read something on a computer where your font might not be installed. And so that's an important step. We can also outline text just as a couple other spots. So it's at the bottom of the properties panel. It's also under type and then outline, create outlines, or you can use the shortcut key Control-Shift-O, or you can right click on it and create outlines will show up there as well. All right. Let's take a look at the touch type tool. So the touch type tool is actually on our type options. Okay. So we have the type tool at the top. We can come down to the touch type tool at the bottom. And it's going to kind of do some things that we could do with outlining. It's going to let us edit individual letters within our text. It's going to be fairly limited in the degree of what it can allow for us to do. We can move things around. We can make them shorter or taller. We can stretch them out. But it's going to be working with that like text really as it exists on the screen. So there are some limits to what you can do with the touch type tool, but you can have a decent amount of fun with this. Okay, and so that's the touch type tool. You can go in, try some things out. You can rotate it as well, and you can bring things in. Well, pretty cool stuff with the touch type tool. So now we're going to take a look at vertical type. This is again another option with our type options. And if we come down here to vertical type, when I click on the screen, it's going to create point text, but it's going to show up vertically. Okay. If I use the vertical type tool and I click and drag, it's going to make a text box, and that text is going to show up vertical in the screen. You'll also notice that it now is going right to left instead of left to right. And that's just a fun little quirk of the vertical type, and you can alter that. But that's the vertical type tool. It's not one we use a ton, but we do use it upon occasion, so it's a good one to know about. All right. The next one is area in type. Okay. And this is where, we have this area type, but maybe we want to have that area type be in a shape itself. Okay. So I have this shape here that I've selected. I'm just going to get the type tool. And if I click and hold on it, I will get the area type tool. But fun fact, you don't really need it. If you have a complete shape, you can just click on that shape and then add text. And it's going to fill that out with that type. Okay. And so now it's filled this out. It's got all the type filled into that area. And it's fitting as best it can given the text that was given. Now, in addition to that, we also have the type on a path. So area type fills in a shape. All right. Type on a path. When I click on a path, it's going to add the text so that it goes along a path. So if I wanted to write something funny and it's a title, and I want that text to be bigger, I can go in, do that, type on a path, and then just change the text size along here in my text options. And now something funny flows along here. Now, when we get to the circle with the type on a path, if I just get the text tool and I just click on the path of the circle, it's still just going to do that area type in the shape. All right, that's the default when you have text and you just click on a circle. So the best way to do it is to either use the type on a path tool itself, or if you want to remember another shortcut, if you hold down the Alt key, notice that now it shows that little squiggly path symbol. And so I can actually click on that and it will type that on the path itself. Now with type on a path, we do have some options we may want to control. So these two bars here are going to dictate the start and finish points and where those land. We also have this bar here that's going to say, do we want it on the inside or the outside? So like if we let's change our text to be a little smaller here so you can kind of get a feel for that. So this bar here, like I said, will dictate inside, outside. But you can also go to if you have that shape selected, go to type on a path, and then type on a path options. And as long as you have this preview box checked, you can actually see, what these different things are going to do and how they work on your path. All right, you can choose where it lines up to. You can choose the spacing of things, all of that. If you go to type on a path options, okay. One thing you'll notice is that circle or that line or the path here, it disappears when you use type on a path or area type in a shape. It will get rid of the visual representation of that shape. So if you're wanting to still have that circle there, have two circles, and then you're going to type on the path on one of the circles, and then you'll have the other one for that visual existence of the circle there. All right. So those are a few of the basics of our type tools. So you can take a look at those, dive into this, and you've learned something new.